Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi taught that during the month of Elul, which we are currently in, God is like a king taking to the fields of his kingdom to visit the people firsthand. He wrote, "Before the king enters a city, the residents of the city go out to greet him and welcome him in the field. Anyone who wants can approach him and greet him, and he receives everyone kindly with a pleasant demeanor." On Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Zalman taught, God returns to his palace in order to judge all that he has seen. In the portion that Rabbi Davidson just chanted, it's made very clear that from the get-go, our tradition has had a pretty strong suspicion of kings, and for good reason. Most of the laws that were just read were broken even by King Solomon, often thought of as the greatest king of all. The Bible records the reigns of many Israelite kings, and the vast majority of them are utter disasters for the people. In many ways, the monarchy led to the exile of the Israelites altogether. So if this is the Torah's understanding of kings, what does it say about our metaphor for God as king? Today, the idea of God as king can be difficult to stomach, especially in a country such as ours, based upon the full rejection of monarchy. The archetype of king is that of an unchallengeable patriarchal ruler ordained by birth and perhaps by God to have final say over all things in his domain. The sense of individual powerlessness and personal negation that accompanies this archetype is uncomfortable for many. When applied to certain religious contexts, it's reasonable to be uncomfortable with it. The image of God put forth within a community tends to be projected upon their religious leader. In instances where the theology of the community also empowers the religious leader as the voice of a king God, that becomes all the more problematic. Luckily, Judaism writ large tends to shy away from such things, and Reform Judaism in particular all the more so. If we take a step back and wash away a little bit of our Western cultural conditioning and delve into the Torah's particular understanding of what an ideal king is, instead of a patriarchal man reigning over humanity, we find a perfectly contained archetypal metaphor for God as both judge and guide, a God of both majesty and warmth. The king found in the Torah can be a lofty and distant man sitting on a throne, meting out justice from on high. But that is certainly not the ideal. The ideal king rides into battle with his military, guiding them firsthand, just as the prophetess Deborah did in the book of Judges. An ideal king is also a sensitive artist and thinker. David was famously a musician, dancer, and poet. Solomon, a philosopher, mystic, and poet. The ideal king of the Torah avoids getting entangled with empires, does not hoard wealth, does not hoard military equipment, in the case of what we read today, horses, is deeply, deeply concerned with justice for the least privileged in his society, and shares his successes with his people. In many contemporary translations, rather than king, we render the word melech sovereign, a word without gender in English. Essentially, this king or sovereign does not represent a patriarchal or matriarchal system. The sovereign blends the genders together, creating opportunities for encounters both masculine and feminine. The medieval Kabbalists saw this too. In their cosmological map, the final sephirah, or realm of divine emanation, was decidedly feminine and often referred to as malchut, kingdom, a feminine word. These Kabbalists envisioned Shabbat as a queen, a royal feminine presence who came to visit the people once a week. In fact, the Kabbalists of Sfat in the north of the land of Israel used to take to the fields to meet this queen on the Sabbath, not unlike Zalman's metaphor for the king being in the fields during Elul. If we entwine all of this royal imagery into one archetype, that of God as king, or maybe better, sovereign, it becomes absolutely clear why this metaphor pervades all of our liturgy. This metaphor or archetype points us towards experiencing both the majesty and warmth of the Jewish God. Our God is not one totally unattainable and distant, or one totally available and present. Our God is not one of only wrath or only of mercy. Our God is not only masculine and not only feminine. Our God is all, one. And depending upon what is appropriate at any given moment, we can encounter any aspect of that God. This is the message of Elul, of the concept of the king being in the field. Although we are on the path to a time of year focused on a majestic God of judgment, distant and above us, a king on high, on that path, God meets us in the field, ready to help us find our aim for atonement, for the days of awe, a warm guide to help us prepare for the coming time of judgment. As you make your way through Elul, try to remember that the king is in the field. Try to keep in mind, maybe even set a reminder somewhere, posted on your fridge or your desk or your mirror in the bathroom, to remember that we Jews spend this month encountering God everywhere, and therefore have unlimited moments to shift our focus towards the divine in all things, and to where we fall short in recognizing this divine aspect of our everyday world. It's not a reminder to start judging yourself harshly or to beat yourself up. It's a reminder to reflect on how you engage in the world, to reflect on what it could mean if every encounter you had was with the king in the field, and to pinpoint those encounters you'd like to maybe do differently in the year ahead. As we continue on this journey towards the High Holy Days, may we all find the king in the field in as multifarious ways as our sovereign is made known to us. Ken Yehi Ratzon.